Hello everyone, it's a new week here on Betting Weekly WTA. The Wimbledon Championships is over. The highs of Krejcikova winning her second major tournament have come back down to reality with two mundane, putting it very politely, 250 events this week. And like I say, joining me, looking back on what was a bit of an upsetting week and could have been so much different, is our WTA handicapper. It is Rory Jiwani. Good morning to you, Rory.
Morning, Nigel. Yeah, could have been a really good Wimbledon. Just a couple of results went against us, a bit of bad luck. I mean, most notably Madison Keys last Sunday in a really great match with Jasmine Paolini. She'd got back in front. She 5-2 up in the third and then wobbled a bit and then suffered a hamstring pull or a tear or something, and she had to retire. So obviously Paolini went to the final. And then Jelena Rybakina was looking so good. She was a set up against Krejcikova in the semis, and then the Czech played really well, in fairness. She came back into it, but Rybakina's level dropped after the first set. It was sort of tail end of the first set. You could see Krejcikova finding her game and breaking Rybakina, but not able to hold serve. And then she started to hold serve, and then she got on top. So yeah, could have been a really good couple of weeks, but in the end it wasn't. But that's how it goes, isn't it? So as you say, we're leaving the grass. We're off to back to the clay for a short time, and we've got two 250s. These should have been better fields than they are, actually, because you did have some big names, not the very big names, not the top four or anyone like that, but you did have some big names entered, but a lot of them have pulled out. So yeah, we're left with two fairly weak 250s back on clay, and it's really weird. I mean, I was just watching some of the sort of qualifiers yesterday. It's very, even for the eyes, it's hard to get used to, because you've seen the quick low bounce of the grass and suddenly it's slow and the ball's sitting up again. So it's a bit of an adjustment for the eyes. But yeah, we've got two tournaments, one in Budapest, one in Palermo, and we'll see how we get on.
I think the Wimbledon tournament summed up my summer of betting, really. I mean, I had Madison Keys with you at 40-1, injured, looking like she was going to win it. I had Alex de Minaur at a huge price.
Yeah, injured.
Gets injured on match point and then can't play against Novak Djokovic. So it was a Wimbledon for injury concerns for men and the women. Obviously, there's a lot of tennis to play for. But before we go on about this week, what I want to do is I'm just going to give you some updates on the US Open. Obviously, the US Open is, what is it now? Over just about 8 weeks away now, 8 weeks away. Oh, I'm going to something in my throat there. Sorry about it. And I'm going to give you some updates with the Bet Rivers now to win the US Open, the final major of the year. Iga Swiatek is plus 298. Rybakina is plus 550. Coco Gauff, who had a very disappointing Wimbledon, she's 550. Sabalenka 550. Didn't play, obviously, for injured. Osaka 14. Pegula 16. Danielle Collins at 18. And the surprising one for me is Barbara Krejcikova, who just won a second major, who was very, very impressive. 40-1.
Yeah, that looks too big to me. Very big, I have to say. Yeah, that looks enormous. I can't quite believe that, because, you know, she's won the French Open on the slowest surface of all. She's won Wimbledon, the quickest surface of all. She won Dubai last year. I mean, with Krejcikova, it's a bit like, I remember last year ruining not backing her in Dubai, because I'd backed her pretty much every tournament last season before Dubai. She's shown no form, and then she came and won it. She beat Pegula, Sabalenka and Swiatek to win in Dubai last year on a hard court like the US Open. So the 40-1 is huge, and probably worth an each way bet, I have to say. It's definitely, she's when she's on her game, as she proved in Dubai last year, as she proved at Wimbledon. When she's on her game, she is a match for anyone. And, you know, she said in her speech yesterday, you know, she's been struggling with injuries and illness this year. And she came through a tight one in the first round, 7-5 in the third set. It was over 3 hours at Wimbledon. And that was what was really annoying about Keys as well, because she hadn't gone into Wimbledon in the best of form, but she'd sort of played her way into form. Looked like she'd got that win against Paolini, which would have been the springboard, you think. And then obviously she got injured. But with Krejcikova, a perfect example of a player playing themselves into form during a slam. Yeah, and as I say, you know, when she's on her game, she is a match for anyone. I think last year after Dubai, I think she said she was a bit annoyed that she wasn't in the conversation of being in the sort of big 3 or 4. And she's proved it. She's, as I say, when she's fit and on her game, she can beat anyone. And now she's a 2-time Slam winner.
Yep, that's 6 weeks away, 6 or 7 weeks away now, the US Open over in New York, and we'll have you covered here on Betting Weekly WTA and Betting Weekly Game Bet Match for all the best bets at Flushing Meadow. It is all about this week, though, and it is 2 tournaments, 2 250 events, starting off in the event in Budapest. It's the Hungarian Grand Prix. I thought we were going to talk about Lewis Hamilton, the Hungarian Grand Prix, but we're not talking about Lewis Hamilton. The number 1 seed here is Schneider. I mean, that just shows you the level of the tournament here, and it's quite difficult for people to bet on these tournaments after majors, but it's an opportunity for some lesser-known players to take centre stage and make a claim. Obviously, the Olympics are going to be played on clay in just a couple of weeks' time now, so players might be finally tuning themselves with the Olympics ahead. If we look at the previous winners here, there's not really much to set the world alight. Timofeeva won it in 2023, Pera in 2022, Putnet-Saver in 2021. She was a good winner in 2021, but they're not in that. That calibre of players aren't in this tournament. Before we look at the odds with Bet Rivers, what do you think of the draw? Is there any bias to the top end or the bottom end of this draw?
Yeah, let's have a look. As I said, this should have been a better tournament because Daria Kasatkina and Putintseva, who obviously beat Swiatek at Wimbledon and won the title in 2021, they were in the entries, but they both pulled out. So you've got Schneider as the number 1 seed, Victoria Tomova, who's just broken into the top 50, she's number 2, Zhiyu Wang, the Chinese left-hander, is number 3, Sara Sorribes Tormo is number 4. 5 is Magdalena Freck, 6 Nadia Podoroska, 7 Moyuka Uchijima, who had a great unbeaten run on clay before Roland-Garros, and number 8 is Varvara Gracheva. You've got Schneider, Wang, Podoroska and Uchijima in the top half. Does look slightly tougher because you've got Olga Danilovic, the Serbian left-hander, who had a good run at Roland-Garros last year, and Bernarda Perez in the top half as well. She knocked Caroline Garcia out at Wimbledon. The bottom half, the seeds are Tomova, Sorribes Tormo, Freck and Gracheva. Also in there, you've got Elena Avanesian and Anna Karolina Schmiedlova, who are both quite useful on clay. As you say, Schneider's the top seed, and she is the favourite. She has 2 WTA Tour wins this season, one in very slow conditions in Thailand in February, and then she won on the grass at Bad Homburg last month. She beat Donna Vekic, who reached the semis at Wimbledon. She beat her in the final. She also won the Challenger event on clay in Paris in May. So Schneider is, she's in great form on all surfaces. I think she's close to the top 30 now in the world. And it's, it's a very winnable tournament. And she is the tournament favourite. And I'm still trying to get in my mind whether she's value because her route to the final doesn't look the most difficult. But I am sort of more drawn to the bottom half because it's that bit easier.
Let's have a look at the runners and winers. Schneider, as you said, is the number 1 seed and the tournament favourite, plus 375 with Bet Rivers. Tormo is plus 550. Gracheva plus 750. Danilovic plus 850. Pera 1100. How do you pronounce this girl? Miyoka
Uchijima.
Well, she's 12 to 1. Avasayan is 12. Tomova is 14. Todoni is 16. Masarova 22 to 1. Like I say, I mean, it's one of those tournaments that do we go with the favourite? Do we go with the player who's in form in Schneider plus 375? But, if you are going to get a shock a week after a major with the Olympics to come, I think you've got to be looking further down the betting order to try and find some potential value here.
Yeah, as I said, I'm still in 2 minds about Schneider because she's got 2 easy openers, you'd think. She's got Fanny Stolar, the home player in round 1, and then the winner of another home player, Timea Babos, and a qualifier in round 2. In the quarterfinals, she'll probably face Danilovic or Uchijima. That would be tougher. Semi-finals doesn't look too bad either, Podoroska or Pera. So I'm sort of almost like doing an accumulator, sort of working out a price for each match. I've got a feeling plus 375 could be value. I'm going to just go for her as a lean. I think I do but as you say, after a slam, it's a funny time of the season, this, because as you say, we've just had the grass, we've got a bit of clay, and then we're looking at the hard courts in the United States before the US Open. So you do get some odd results. I mean, we got an odd result here last year. Maria Timofeeva, she was a qualifier, came from absolutely nowhere to take the title. So I'm leaning towards Schneider in the top half, but I'm drawn to the bottom half, and particularly Alina Avanesian, who's having a pretty good season. She beat Angelina Kalinina at Wimbledon and then went out to Lyudmila Samsonova. No disgrace in that against the big serving Russian. She beat Qinwen Zheng at the French Open and then fell to Jasmine Paolini in 3 sets. Of course, Paolini, runner-up in the French, runner-up in Wimbledon. I'm a little bit worried that she's had a couple of injury retirements in recent months, Avanesian. But I think she's the value in the bottom half at $12. So she's my 1 point each way bet for the tournament. So I'm leaning with Schneider, but Avanesian is the bet.
Yep, Avanesian in what does appear to be a slightly easier bottom half of the draw. And if Anna Efes, easy for me to say, is the 12-1 pick from Rory. Schneider is the favourite, plus 375. Not putting anybody off that, but we do think a week after a major and coming into this time where there's so many injuries, so many players trying to not really go overexert themselves, but especially being an Olympic year as well. It could be valid to go for the bigger price, and Avanesian at 12-1 is the pick from Rory over in Budapest. Head across to the Bet Rivers website now. There's match prices available as well as a bumper week as well on the men's tour as well. Everything is covered on the Bet Rivers website. Okay, let's move across to the second tournament this week. It's in Palermo over in Italy. And it's the defending champion is Qinwen Zheng here, and she is the favourite here at plus 220. We'll come on to the runners and riders. Begu won it in 2022. Downer Collins won it in 2021. Ferro won it in 2020. If you look at the entries for this tournament, it's a lot better quality than the tournament in Budapest, that's for sure.
I mean, it could have been even better. I mean, we were supposed to have Alina Svitolina, but she pulled out. Qinwen Zheng, first round exit at Wimbledon to the surprise package, Lulu Sun from New Zealand. So after that early exit, she took up a wild card for this, and she's the top seed, as you say, defending champion. She beat Jasmine Paolini in the final last year in the 3 sets. That was her first tour title. And Maya Sherif and Sara Sorribes Tormo, who's playing in Budapest, they were the beaten semi-finalists. Begu, as you say, won it in 2022. She beat Lucia Bronzetti in the final. So you've had 2 Italians in the last 2 finals. You've got Qinwen Zheng is the number 1 seed. Karolina Mukova, number 2. Obviously, Roland-Garros finalist last year. Still on the comeback trail after a wrist injury. Peyton Stearns, number 3, who won for us in Rabat just before Roland-Garros. Diane Parry, number 4. Arantxa Rus is 5. Anna Blinkova is 6. Jacqueline Christian from Romania is number 7. And number 8 is Tatiana Maria, who's not having the best of seasons so far. Conditions-wise, should have said for Budapest as well, very similar. It's going to be hot and sunny all week. In Palermo, it's low to mid-30s Celsius, so that's low to mid-90s Fahrenheit. And Budapest is pretty similar. I think there's going to be some rain on Tuesday in Budapest, but it's still going to be sort of low to mid-90s. Slow conditions, both of these were at the lower end of the scale last year. So slow conditions, hot weather, it's going to be a real stamina test. And as you say, we've seen the injuries in Wimbledon and since, and this time of the year is going to be difficult adjusting back from grass as well. So, we could see a bit of attrition in both of these tournaments, players pulling out. Just because, we're back on clay, long rallies, and in hot conditions, it's going to be quite a test for these players. Qinwen Zheng, she's not been in the best of form. She only won 1 match on grass. She didn't win any last year on grass. So, and before that, as I say, she fell at Roland-Garros to Alina Avanesian, who's playing in Budapest. Definitely question marks over her. especially at plus 220 is her price. She's the favourite. And she's up against Sara Irani first up, the Italian veteran who, is one of those players who some players find are very easy to deal with and others find her extremely difficult. She's obviously a pusher, former French Open finalist. And for Zheng, that might be a slightly tricky opener, having come back from the grass.
And also home advantage as well. I mean, the Italians' tennis is booming at the moment in Italy on the men's and the women's scene as well. Very, very patriotic support. Very, very difficult place to go over in Italy and win against a home player. So that might be a bit of advantage for players who are Italian. I'm not quite sure where you're going to come on the outright market, but that might go into your thoughts as well here. But Ken Zheng up against the legend, the Italian legend, Irani. Looks like it might be a very difficult first round match. But let's have a look at the outright market. Zheng is the favourite, defending champion, as I say, plus 220. Mukova, disappointed at Wimbledon, obviously coming back from injury, but plus 350 here. If she was fit and she was at her best, that plus 350 would look a gift, but I'm not so sure. Maya Sherif has had a very, very good clay year. She played in a challenger event last week, I think, doing quite well. She's plus 650. Begu is 12. Deanne Parry, 12. Peyton Stearns, 16. Martic is 20. Carla is 22. Arantxa Rus, who's had a good year on clay, good numbers, beating some big players. She's 22 to 1. Tomljanovic is 28 to 1 on the comeback trail, but you wouldn't expect clay to be her time when she's going to win. Trevisan is 28 to 1, and then we go into 33. But a little bit further down there, Bronzetti, a beaten player finalist here before, 40 to 1 with home support. Good clay court player. That looks quite a tempting price to me. But what are your thoughts here, Rory?
Great minds think alike, Nigel.
You're on Bronzetti?
Yeah, I do. I like two Italians, actually. As we say, Italians do quite well in this event, reaching the final last 2 years. And both of the two I'm interested in are coming into form. Martina Trevisan in the bottom half. And there's not too much. I mean, I'm trying to think which way I had it. I think the bottom half is slightly the top half is the easier of the two in this tournament. The bottom half does look a bit tricky. But for the players that went out early in Wimbledon, there have been a couple of challenger events on clay this week. And Trevisan, she fell to Madison Keys in round 1 at Wimbledon. And she's been playing in Sweden, in Bastad, in the challenger there. She's into the final there today after wins over Astrid Sharma, the Australian, and Deanne Parry, the French woman, who is seeded in the other tournament. No, seeded in this tournament. She's a 4th seed here. But Trevisan beat her in Sweden a few days ago. Ann Lee is her opponent in the final. The American's actually in really good form on clay. She won the challenger in Valencia just before Wimbledon, beating Trevisan and Tomova, who's the number 2 seed in Budapest. And she is into the final again here. So she played at Wimbledon. I think she played in the qualifiers at Wimbledon. 1 match, 1 loss. But she's back to her unbeaten run on clay. So she's interesting as well. But I think with home advantage, Trevisan at $28 is interesting. She's got Arantxa Rus first up, who won't be easy, and then potentially Begu, the 2022 champion, in round 2, but she might be able to get on a roll with that home support. The other tournament this week, the other challenger, is in Contrexeville in France, and Maya Sherif is into the final there against Lucia Bronzetti. So, Bronzetti reached the final 2 years ago, and in that top half, which looks a bit easier, I mean, Bronzetti will have Elsa Giacomo, the French woman. She's talented, but quite wayward at times in round 1. And Bronzetti at $40 is interesting, certainly in what looks a weak top half. I mean, when you've got, Zheng, if Zheng gets back to form, she should come through it reasonably comfortably. But as I say, there are enough question marks over her at the moment. So, with Bronzetti and Trevisan both reaching finals this week, both playing today, hopefully they'll both play on Tuesday. They'll get a bit of a break, a day off before starting in this tournament. But Trevisan $28, Bronzetti at $40. I wouldn't put you off Ann Lee at $33. just because she's been playing really well on clay as well. But yeah, the home advantage is an angle here, so I'm going for those. Half a point each way on both of the Italians. Trevisan at $28 and Bronzetti at $40. Another player worth a mention is Maya Sheriff there at plus 650. She was playing some really good stuff on clay. She fell to Madison Keys at Roland-Garros. Before that, she did beat Jasmine Paolini in Rome. But I think, as we've said about the time of year, it is probably worth going for players at bigger odds. So Sheriff is definitely capable, and should be capable of having a bit of a run here. Although she's got Ajla Tomljanovic in the opening round, who's always dangerous. She seems to be fit. Her serve is useful. I mean, obviously it's more of an advantage on grass or quicker hard courts, but she still gets cheap points even on clay. But I'm going for two Italians in Palermo this week.
Yeah, I'm looking at that market. I look at the top three in the betting there: Zheng, Mukova, and Sheriff. Plus 220, plus 350, and plus 650. I'd like to fade those three in this tournament because there's a lot of really important tennis coming up. Roland-Garros is huge for all three of those players. The build-up to the US Open, the American hardcourt season, and I think there's motivation here is going to be a big question mark for a lot of these players. And I totally agree with you, Rory. I think the Italian angle is a great angle. Trevisan at 28, Bronzetti at 40, both of them in great form. And hopefully they don't have to play 2 marathon matches before they get here. But, that's what we don't want. But they look a great couple of bets there.
Yeah, they're big prices. I think, a lot of these odds have been priced up based on the WTA tour this year. And obviously, Trevisan hasn't had a great season. But, I think a lot of them have missed the action this week on the Challenger Tour. So I think we're getting a bigger price. If those, the events this week had been factored into these odds, I think they'd be probably half the price they are now. But, and I dare say after today, when the results come through the finals and whatever has happened, they might be a bit shorter. So, yeah, get on Trevisan and Bronzetti quickly, I'd say.
Yep, definitely. You want to be heading across to the Bet Rivers website or the app. Huge amount of markets available on these matches. The tournaments both start tomorrow early doors, around about 4 a.m. Eastern Time in Budapest and around about 5 a.m. Eastern Time in Palermo. So head across to the Bet Rivers website. Make sure you take those prices. Rory, we're hanging on to profit, just plus 1.19 units. Just hanging on to a little bit of profit there, but it's profit. It doesn't matter. When you're only picking tournament winner odds, to have profit is good. So not too concerned. A lot of tennis coming up, and I think we could add to that with those 2 Italian picks as well. Remember, subscribe to Betting Weekly Studios on YouTube. Lots of great content there. The football season is now coming to a conclusion with the final of Euro 2024, but we were back with all the major leagues only in about 4 or 5 weeks now. But it's tennis for the remainder of the summer, and you can get all the tennis action here on the WTA and also on the ATP Tour on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to that. Download the podcast, Betting Weekly WTA, on your preferred podcast provider, and obviously follow us on our socials at becausewewin on Twitter and on Instagram. Before I leave you, Rory, just give us a recap of your bets this week on the couple of 250 events on the WTA Tour.
Yeah, in Budapest, I've gone for Elena Avanesian, a point each way at $12, and in Palermo, I'm going for 2 half-point each-way bets. 2 Italians, Martina Trevisan at $28 and Lucia Bronzetti at $40.
When you head across to the Bet Rivers website and you see that 28 for Trevisan and 40-1 Bronzetti, you'll be shouting, "Mamma mia!" But make sure you get on that now because those prices will definitely shorten. That's it for this week. We are back next week for more tennis action, and the countdown to the Olympics continues here on Betting Weekly WTA. Have a good weekend. Take care.